Welcome to Tanked Up, the podcast about video games and beer. It's episode 219. I'm Ben, here with Lucy.
Hi.
We're here with Aadil.
Hi.
Hey.
And we've got a guest. He's returned to us, Stephen Carr. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm very well, thank you. Are you?
Good, yes, good mate. Very good. Ready for some beers. Aadil,
good.
Lucy, how are you both?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a gloomy day, but...
Yeah, alright.
Good. Ready for beers, everybody?
No.
No,
I ran
Lucy, you're on the water tonight, I think, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which
Healthy.
measuring jug makes an appearance today?
None today, so
Oh,
I'm disappointed on both fronts.
Oh no,
Just a
but that's like
normal pint
the
glass.
fourth co-host.
Alongside a cat and a wife, yeah. The cameos.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Cat's not in the room today.
Probably appear at
walk
some
in,
point.
He'll open the door.
As will Kim, unless I start being a bit quieter. Stephen, we'll start with you. What beer are you going to drink tonight?
So I'm actually going to drink a beer that was sent to me back end of last week by
Nice.
A sort of relatively new brewery. I don't know if you've heard of them, called Salt Steel Brewery, based up in Teesside in Middlesbrough. So they are just starting out. They were just starting out when the lockdown first happened, so they had all the kit pretty much ready to rock and roll, and then this kind of hit. So they've been waiting to things to settle down a little bit before going and actually committing to full brewing. So it's Liam, the chap who owns it and runs it, that sent me a couple of sample beers. So they've brewed two different styles of West Coast IPA as part of their first batch. I had one over the weekend, which was very nice, and I'm going to drink the second variant tonight. So from what I can recall, it's hopped with Citra, Centennial, Chinook, and the one on the weekend was also hopped with Nelson Sauvin, which this one doesn't have Nelson Sauvin in it, which the samples are just in like brown bottles, so I haven't got an exciting can to show you on this front just yet, but yeah, his the intentions are that he will be canning in 440ml cans
Okay.
very, very shortly. But yeah, he's very kindly sent me some samples out and to some other people across sort of Instagram and sort
Nice.
of the wider beer scene. So hopefully we'll see him out there a bit more very, very soon. But yes, I thought
Quality.
I'd tuck into this one.
Yeah, good. Aadil, what are you going to drink tonight?
I've got a beer tonight.
Okay.
Not going for two, but it's such a gloomy day. I was saving this one, so
Ooh.
I've got the Stupid Sexy Suffolk Blend No. 3 from Little Earth Project, Suffolk Grown Untamed Beers. 5.5%, Flanders Red. We've always had a fascination with Flanders Red style beers and their links to brewing in the UK. We also love them sour, but with a rounded sweetness, complex but effortlessly drinkable. This will be our third blend, this time combining 10 barrels of varying aged beer from 4 to 14 months. We use a mixture of pale rye, wheat, and chocolate malt to give a more complex profile. In the boil, aged hops were added to give the beer a note of tannins, and finally, the beer was aged in barrels with our own mixed culture of wild yeast and bacteria. The result is a deep ruby beer with tannins, spice, acidity, sweetness, and a hint of oak and spice.
Okay.
They say spice quite a bit.
Spicy then.
Yeah, apparently. There's a lot of spice has gone into that.
Yeah, I wonder. I like how it's just spice.
Maybe there's two,
Oof,
which is why they said
smell
it
it.
twice.
Fuck me!
Oh no.
There we go.
Did this
So
happen
whilst
last
he's-
time it was on as
Yes,
well?
it did happen last time. Yeah, I think at least last time it was the second beer that exploded. We went without an event for the first half, I would imagine. Whilst he is dealing with that, I'm going to crack open and hopefully not explode everywhere. A beer from Turning Point Brewing Company, which is called Rare Candy. It's an IPA. Unfortunately, the label is askew. It should be a bit straighter.
Is that a Pokemon reference?
Well, it's a little Game Boy on there. Rare Candy is something that you use in Pokemon. Yeah. It was, I think it's about 6%. Where did I read that? Oh, 6.4%. Tells me right under the name, right there. It does tell me Not very much. Malted barley, wheat, oats, condensation. Get that out of the way. Maltodextrin, hops, yeast, water. So it doesn't tell me what the hops are on there. There's no kind of thing on the back. It is just that, which is fine. We'll just see what it's like, I guess. But I picked it because it's a nice little video game can.
What does Ben evolve into? I think Kratos. I think Ben evolves into Kratos.
But just get like three times the size, 3 times as angry. There's big red marks all over me. Either that or I grow hair. It's one of the two.
Hair on top of your head or just a bigger beard? Which one?
I get some luscious blonde locks to go with my overall look.
Speaking of beards, I thought the distortion on Stephen's mic was just his microphone rubbing on his massive beard, but I think it's better now.
For Aadil, Turning Point Brewing, Rare Candy IPA. That's what I had this evening.
Nice.
Little Game Boy reference. We'll come back to you, Stephen.
Right.
How is the beer?
It's very nice. It's very nice. I did enjoy the one that I had over the weekend, to be fair, so I was excited to see how the lack of the Nelson serving would make a difference to this one. The first thing that he did admit himself was, I don't know if you can see that very well on the camera, is that they're quite undercarbed, or less carb than he quite would want them to be. So, as with any sort of lesser carb beer, so I kind of pour it from a bit of a greater height to get some air into it, but it's pretty much what you'd expect from a West Coast, really, in terms of when you first smell it, is that you're getting that sort of that malty, biscuity nose on it, in terms of what you really want from it. And the West Coast beers are kind of what I like lean towards over a thick or juicy New England. So it's got that sort of like a bit of stickiness as well, which can sometimes get a bit with a West Coast, which again is kind of the reason that I like it and like that style. Not sort of huge amounts of fruitiness, but obviously you get more of that sort of piney, malty balance, as opposed to sort of huge fruity notes, which again, for me, the West Coast style breaks up a lot of the thick and cloudy New England IPAs and other IPAs that are juiced quite heavily and hopped quite extensively. So I think they've got the balance quite nice on this one. But like I say, it would be nice a bit more carbonation, because I must admit I like my beers more fizzy. I'm not I don't really like traditionally flat beers, or like what would be more sort of like cask beer. It's not got as much carbonation on it, so that would be nice to see in it. Interestingly, Liam said he prefers this one over the other one I tried over the weekend, and I'd have to wait to see and to get to the bottom of it, but I'm already leaning more to the other one. So it's just the other one seemed to have a little bit of an edge, which is probably due to the Nelson serving or lack thereof in this one.
Yeah, fair. Not every beer can hit exactly the same, can they? Which is fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aadil?
Oh, it's me. It's the beer explosion man.
Which you've cleaned up now. So how is the beer?
Yes. I literally forgot about it while I was tidying, and then we had our technical issues. It smells very like yeasty, wild bacteria-y, and dare I say, spicy. It's got a nice sweet undertone. It's this lovely, like, thick brown red, which is quite. I think it comes off in the lighting on the stream, on the camera, a little redder than it actually looks like in person. It's quite brown. It doesn't have a lot of head, but I don't know if that's because of the beer explosion.
It did at one point.
A little too much. This is really, really good.
Ooh.
It's got a velvety texture. It starts quite sweet and tart at the same time, so there's this underlying sweetness, and then you get this lovely sour body come through that just sticks around through the finish. But the extra yeast and bacteria, like it reminds me of some of those weird beards. The yeast they use. Wow, my brain just stopped.
It's that good.
Yeah. It's quite sour forward, but like I said, that sweet undertone sits there, and it actually sits there long enough that when the sour finally fades, like 20, 25 seconds later, you're like, oh yeah, there's that sweetness. Again, it's like a raspberry, sort of like an underripe raspberry sort of tartness. And it, and you can taste, especially whenever like the sour, which is again really, really forward, fades. You can taste a bit of that rounded maltiness, slightly toffee undertone. Again, not the same as the sweetness, but just like, oh yeah, there's a big, strong set of malts in this that just sort of you can't immediately notice in the first taste, just because it's like, whew, this is eye-opening sour. It's really quite tasty. I'm really enjoying it. I'm glad that there's more than a pint.
You have a nice big bottle.
Yeah. It's only 5%, I think. They said 5.5. So big bottle, 5.5, not so bad. I think the last time I had a big bottle, it was 7.5, and I got a little squirrely by the end of the podcast. It was months ago.
There was that that Aura. Was it a stout or a porter that you had?
It was a porter, I think.
Yeah.
And a 750, and it was like, it was real tasty. But again, in these times we have, we split cooking duties throughout the house, but everyone else likes eating late. So if we're lucky, food will be done at 8:30, which means I don't have dinner before the podcast these days. And when I have a boisterous couple of beers, boy, how do I feel it by the end? It was like, oh yeah, I hope I wasn't too rambly.
It's fine. We always let you go. It's all right.
I was like, it's my shtick.
As much as you need.
Yeah,
I enjoy
but yeah, no, this is really tasty. I didn't have a lot of words outside of sour, and it's not like one note, but just struggling to find the
It's
right
spicy.
one. It actually is.
You said spicy.
It is spicy.
More words may come as you drink it.
Yeah.
We can always return to it when we open. I've got 2 beers, so when I open another beer, we can come back to you to see if that taste has evolved. Your palate is acclimatized is the wrong word, but your palate has got used to it, and you're able to pick out a few more things. So we will.
How about you?
I will now tell you about the very. I poured so much beer into this glass, I'm having to move it so slowly.
You lot live on the edge. Like, what's wrong with you?
Hey, I don't plan to live on the edge. The edge finds me.
I mean,
It
take
goes
a
off
note
of
from
the edge.
Stephen. His pour was very sensible. Yeah, look at that.
Just so that you should give a good 10 mil, give 10, 20 mil from the top or something. So yes, Turning Point Rare Candy. It's got a nice orangey, sort of almost slightly bronzy hue to it, but it does sort of yellow just around the edges. It's not a kind of a thick, hazy beer, but it is pretty solid. I had a reasonable head to it. The nose is very, very light. I thought it would be maybe a little bit bigger, considering I have now had a couple of sips of this. And the flavour is quite big. I thought the nose would be a little bit bigger, but it's quite light. And in the flavour, I'm getting those slightly more bitter and sour sort of tropical fruits. So maybe a little bit of melon, sort of pushing most of this. It's kind of edging on. No, I mean it's got a little bit of grapefruit to it as well, but kind of almost that melon is actually sort of the bigger flavour in there, and it kind of burns down quite nicely to leave this sort of quite low piney bitterness to it, which sticks around. So that fruit flavour disappears quite quickly. It's big, but it doesn't last. The piney kind of bitterness creeps in quite nicely, and that just sits and sits and sits and sits. So even now, I'm still getting that nice bitterness from it, and it is. It's definitely a beer which isn't making me want to go back to it. That bitterness does dry out quite quickly, so I do want to sip it to have that nice sort of first flavour, but it doesn't make me do that, which is very, very nice of the beer, not to force me to drink it, but instead allow me to kind of take it at my own pace and just refresh that bitterness just a little bit.
I mean, just looking
I'm
at
not
it,
sure.
Ben.
Mm.
Sorry, I was going to say there's probably a reason why they didn't put the hops on the can, is because of how many hops are actually in it. So I just looked on Untapped. So it's actually got Simcoe, Mosaic, Citra, Centennial, Nelson Sauvin, and Chinook hops. So there's
just throw them all in.
It just came to the like an end of a few bags of hops and just went, we need to use them. So just chuck it in. Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
I think I was led into this false sense by the name of the beer as well. Kind of thinking maybe something like Rare Candy might have a bit more sweetness to it. Maybe it kind of edges on a little bit more of a bubblegummy sort of estery kind of flavour to it, or something like that. But I'm not getting anything like that from it. I think I guess they just wanted to call it this because they just thought it would be cool, rather than it kind of relating sort of to the beer in any way, which is fine. Doesn't matter. It's just a name, but. Definitely a very different taste than I thought I was going to get, but a welcome one. It's a very nice beer, and I'm enjoying it. And I will continue to drink it very, very quickly, unless we move on to one of our topics this evening. And I think I'm going to kick us off, because last week I wanted to talk about something. We were having too much fun talking about all of the joyous games in our lives, rather than beer news or beer chat or beer discussion. So as a bit of background, and I will read part of the blog post, Cloudwater put out a blog post at the end of June, on the 29th, in which they talk about a lot of stuff. It doesn't have an author, so I would assume this has been written by Paul, who owns a brewery, and goes into lots of stuff, goes into lots of chat about lots of different things. But I just want to focus on the beer stuff for the moment. The bit about the beer I kind of want to focus on is the idea around how he sort of talks about bottle shops and being able to provide maybe lines of credit to various distributors and people, and how kind of the business models are maybe changing, or at least Cloudwater are thinking that they're going to change maybe their business model moving forward. So currently under lockdown, it sounds like they haven't been able to produce the amount of beer that they would normally. So they've just kind of disappeared from bottle shops, mostly. You know, I've not seen them down in Bristol at all. We haven't had them here since lockdown started, whereas before you'd always see them around and always get them in. But the blog post kind of goes on to say stuff like, you know, they're going to start looking at cold beer delivery services. So they've acquired 2 refrigerated vans, one for Manchester and one for London. So they'll be doing cold beer delivery, because I know that they're very big on their cold chain. So making sure that the beer is refrigerated kind of as soon as it is canned, and is then sent down to bottle shops to be put straight into fridges, or to bars and tap rooms and places to be refrigerated straight away. So that kind of makes sense for them. One of the things that they talk about, so this part of the blog, and you can go to Cloudwater's website to read the entire blog post. It is a big one. But this one, I was going to just pick some bits out, but I might just read this entire bit. It won't take too long. But it's titled Credit Where It's Due, and not where out is overdue. And it says, one of the biggest causes for our cash flow crisis at the start of lockdown was the industry's reliance on credit terms. We think that some of the reason for which credit terms are offered are incredibly sensible and necessary, but that we must look carefully at credit term norms in order to protect ourselves from another cash flow crisis. Makes sense. We recognise that across all our trade customers there are vast differences in readiness of our beer for sale at the time of delivery. Pubs that buy our cask beer must allow it to settle before conducting their processes of venting, tapping and conditioning the beer ready for sale, taking several days for delivery at best. In essence, we think that credit to our cask customers is essential, as the beer we sell and deliver is not yet at its best. On the other end of the spectrum, and this is kind of the bit I want us to sort of focus on and talk about a little bit. On the other end of the spectrum, in terms of readiness of our beers to sell, are bottle shops that can, at least in theory, open up boxes within minutes of delivery and immediately start putting money through the till. This point was drastically oversimplified in our prior post, in a way that made it seem as though bottle shops could find themselves in profit on the day of delivery. The truth is that, although bottle shops can sell our delivered beer with the least preparation and shortest delay, their rate of sale is considerably lower at their peak times than bars at peak times. We feel that these times of great uncertainty we must offer credit where it's due, and not credit for the sake of historical norms, and that some of the industry credit norms may no longer best protect the mutual interests and good cash flow from farmer to producer, wholesaler to retailer. We're unsure how we'll be able to fairly evaluate credit terms for the wide variety of businesses we sell to, but we'll be working hand in hand with all our customers to find a model that is workable for all of us. It goes on a little bit further, just to say that they're going to be looking at things like credit terms kind of as they move forward. But the blog post kind of makes it sound like we don't really want to offer lines of credit to bottle shops. And I know Cloudwater have done sort of, at least in lockdown, made big efforts to make sure that their beer that they've had, they're selling directly kind of on the website. Which makes sense, and a lot of brewers have moved to that model. But, and I guess the question I kind of want to pose is, after lockdown, do we see a big change with bottle shops and not being able to perhaps get some of these bigger breweries beers, that we would have to go kind of directly to them? I'll come to each of you in turn, so we don't try and chat too much over each other. But I'm not someone who really buys directly from breweries. I don't want kind of 12 cans from one brewery, even if they've got 12 different styles of beer available at that time. I want to be able to go to a bottle shop and buy a big range of beers, from across the spectrum of slightly, not big breweries, but, the Cloudwaters, the Norths, the Northern Monks, down to bottled breweries that are kind of just starting out, and local breweries and things. And I think that the way that kind of Cloudwater are positioning themselves just kind of seems a little bit at odds with at least what I kind of would like to experience as a customer. Lucy, I'll start with you first. What do you think?
Okay.
Do you think bottle shops and things like this are going to be completely different in 3 months' time, when everyone's kind of back up to capacity and things?
You can either have the sensible answer of welcome to my seminar on asset finance, or we can just go the silly answer and this is my pitch for a movie when I conduct a heist on one of their cold vans.
Bit of both, mate.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, when you're saying that you don't want to buy from, not don't want to, but you don't typically buy from breweries directly. I literally put an order in from Left-Handed Giant.
Yeah.
For two, I think it's free delivery over £30. I was like, that's reasonable. Most places £50. And buying straight from like brewers, it's a lot cheaper than bottle shops, and I think we're going to go into an economic crisis. It does put bottle shops in that weird position because buying from breweries, like I've been going to Burning Soul and I can get a whole growler fill for like £10, and which that amount of beer from a bottle shop is sadly it's going to be what probably a 50% markup on that.
Yeah, it's going to be £15-16, something like that.
Yeah, and it's difficult times, and as much as you want to support your local bottle shops and high street retailers, like coming straight from source, it's going to be cheaper. Cloudwater making that stance, I mean, they've got to look after their own bottom line at the end of the day, so they can't be too worried about what these high street stores or retailers are going to do. Well, small retailers, do Cloudwater have any supply in large chains? They don't have any in Tesco.
Not any in the supermarkets, I don't think. They did have one
Brewdog
beer in
and
Tesco,
Cloudwater.
didn't they?
Yeah.
So, sorry, what was that, Stephen?
Just the Brewdog and Cloudwater collaboration, wasn't it? That, but it wasn't theirs, their own directly, but that's it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer for you, Ben. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest.
Do you see yourself as someone who kind of does buy directly from breweries? I know that's I know that's not, at least before lockdown. I think your more direct way of buying beer was going to the bottle shop. So that has changed.
I don't want to go near one now.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah. So that kind of your buying habits have changed during lockdown. Do you think if when everything is kind of safe again and we're okay to go to bottle shops and drink in at bottle shops and all of those sorts of things, do you sort of see yourself still thinking, well, actually, yes, I might go to a bottle shop this week, but next week I'm going to do 2 direct orders from breweries? Is it going to change your buying habits?
What would change my buying habits would be this pandemic. It's not, purely on Cloudwater. If I can't ever get a Cloudwater beer again unless I buy direct from source, then I'm not that fussed. There's enough breweries around there, and I think enough breweries will still be reliant on local suppliers to get beer into people's hands. So it's on a case-by-case basis. Is it like, if I never had a day of beer ever again in my life, I wouldn't die, It's like, it's just like, how much do I want that beer? If that's the only avenue to get it, then it's like, it's not worth taking the risk for me. And it's like, there are other plenty of beers. There's markets for all different kinds of beers, local, national, whatever. Yeah,
fair. Stephen, I'll come to you next. As someone I know who does sort of, again, has been getting kind of local or going direct to breweries on some of your kind of orders that you've been having in. Is that changed since sort of lockdown? Were you just sort of bottle shop kind of purchasing before?
I think the reason that I've done it more is out of I ordered from Cloudwater direct when they did their Finback special box, and no disrespect to Cloudwater that more, because they were getting beers from Finback in. I did it because they were getting beers from America. It's no disrespect to their beer, but it's very infrequent we see beers readily available from America that I order direct. And then the other couple of orders that I have put in have been more to get brewery specific beers if I'm doing a podcast for them. It's like Firebrand. I ordered from Firebrand direct because it's like the breweries that I don't see locally in my local bottle shops, I tend to buy direct from. So I like to Firebrand, etc., and then I would do. But for me, I'm much like you, Ben, in terms of the bottle shop. I want to go in. It's the experience of going in the bottle shop as much as the beer. In terms of going to see James at Yorkshire Craft Beers, who's down the road from me, or Johnny at Rainville, who's in Leeds near where I normally work and things. They know a lot about beer and they add a lot of value to buying the beer. So it goes beyond just buying that beer, and a lot like Lucy just said there is that if Cloudwater stopped supplying the bottle shops, it wouldn't necessarily make me go and order a large quantity from them direct, because it's very few and far between that I ever want to go buy 10 beers from one brewery in particular to necessitate the postage that normally comes with buying direct. So yes, it is, like you said, it is cheaper, and obviously they've got to look after them, after the bottom line and their own, wages and staff at the end of the day, which I completely understand. But I still from my brief knowledge and kind of dealings with the craft beer scene and bottle shops and things, I still find it very bizarre that they offer credit terms on something like that. It's still a concept that quite doesn't get me. It's like James at York's Craft Beers. He pays every invoice as soon as his beer comes in. He doesn't have. He can get credit, but he doesn't, because it's like, well, at the end of the day, that brewery needs the money. And if people want to pay me for like my beer, I don't offer credit terms to people that buy my beer because I need that money for that beer. So it's the same the other way around. Do you know what I mean? So I get it from a cask and a keg and a pub and that sort of scale, because you might be buying X quantity of casks or kegs, but from a bottle shop wanting to buy a case of maybe 40 beers, if the question surely is, as much as I think we mentioned, Ben, Paul from Cloudwater can be very, divisive, and he can split opinion a lot of the time, but I can see it from both sides, because yes, they've got to look after themselves, but if the bottle shop can't afford to buy the beer, then should they be buying the beer in the first place? And to me that just seems like they should be more selective in terms of who they should be, and address that directly with the individuals, as opposed to putting a blanket statement out there that basically brandishes all bottle shops as people who aren't paying the bills. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. But I think that's what people took umption to a lot of across Twitter, especially. If you looked at the replies on Twitter, people saying you can't treat everyone the same, and people have been paying the bills and blah blah blah, and it's like, especially in this sort of time of uncertainty as well, that the last thing that the need is, well, if Cloudwater are a big part of their lineup or one of the big sellers, to then suddenly be worrying that they can't sell them anymore, then, well, the last thing they need is that looming over their heads. So it's an odd thing, but I think the way that they did it was wrong. I think that's my summarising.
Yeah.
The way that blog post read was like, I think Cloudwater had overestimating their own importance. There are many other breweries with the clout that Cloudwater no longer has. Like, you don't really hear Cloudwater mentioned when people consider their favourite breweries or top breweries these days. 5 years ago, absolutely, but not anymore.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
I mean, that's sort of one of the things I was going to say, so I'll just jump on my take then. Taking the segue, kind of smashing it, and then picking up its pieces, because it was natural, and boy did I make that less so. I think that's exactly right. So I think they did their accounting, and they saw the bottom line was they could make enough money in their direct sales, and probably with certain partnerships with certain bottle shops, but if you think that you are really, important is a good word, right? If you think you've got the market clout, then it makes perfect sense to say, well, people are buying from me now. Why don't I continue selling to them and not have to have a credit period? But I do think that, we had. A couple of years back, there were so many Cloudwater things going on that we had them, a Cloudwater every couple of weeks kind of thing for a while, especially with those, what were they, DIPA versions or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
But they haven't really done something like that in a while, or at least it hasn't made those waves. And I think this is the miscalculation that Lucy was hinting at. It's I'll pick up a Cloudwater when I'm browsing all the other things. I think the one thing that's different for people like us than the average consumer, which might have driven why they made this decision, is we are craft beer enthusiasts, and we like trying different things. But if they end up having beers that sell consistently, if they found themselves shifting more to the Brewdog type model, where we're not pushing out new types of beers, or at least we have a stable thing that people just keep buying, then they'll buy those 12 cans from us, and maybe that's more sustainable, and maybe that's what's gotten them through it. But the breweries I like switch things up consistently, and that's why I want to go somewhere which has the variety, so I can be like, this time I'm going to take from these people. But also, as Stephen said, the expertise of the person behind the counter saying, oh, this is a really good one, or if you like this, blah, blah, blah. And that, I think, people like us are still going to go to bottle shops, but I think what it seems like the subtext is we make more money this other way, possibly on consistent sales, because again, that's like people like us don't buy 12 cans of the same thing. Not that we don't like the beer, but we like the variety. But if they are finding when they're doing their books that people are buying 12 ofs or 6 ofs instead of one-offs times 12, then that might have been the clue that they have that enough market share to just continue selling that way. The thing I think is going to happen though is people are doing that because it's affordable and they're looking for beer, but a lot of craft beer enthusiasts do like variety, and so when the shops open, even if I've been steadily buying from Cloudwater because, I don't, lockdown's been really weird, and I just don't want to shop around, and I like what their beers are, so, every couple of weeks I just get a shipment from one brewery, maybe two. I think that those people, a lot of that has to do with the dynamics of lockdown, not a change in buying patterns.
Yeah.
And so I think this is where it might fall apart on them, is that, actually, when you can do all the other things easily and safely, you're going to spend the same amount on craft beer, but why wouldn't I order from a bottle shop that will ship to me 17 beers now that I've sort of in a less anxiety prone state, and or just this fact that you get tired of things. But I think lockdown is not a good time to do this type of market analysis because there's so much psychological stuff going on. But I think it's their measure of we have the clout, and so if we won't lose that many sales, or at least we'll gain enough back by just not having to give credit, and the bottom line is that. And I don't know what their books are like and how bad lockdown was, but it might just be hey, we don't know when the next market shock will happen, and if this is sustainable for our business, we should do that. But saying it in a blog post that sort of lays blame as if people were making bad faith deals is really shitty, because it's not like you guys didn't have these standing contracts. Steven said a lot of bottle shops probably do pay right away, but the ones that don't, that's because of the contracts you have, and a lot of that is the norms that they were citing. But then to imply that there's a problem with the norm, but therefore there's a problem with the people who use it, is a very sketchy move. That's the part that really got my hackles up. It's one thing to say this norm is bad, can we reconsider? Hey, bottle shops, if you can't afford it, let's work it out. But that's not the vibe that came off, right? The vibe is this is a shitty norm and these people are shitty.
Yes, yeah. I think a lot of people, as you said, Stephen, a lot of the sort of the replies on Twitter and stuff, sort of suggesting, you can't take everyone as the same. You can't put out this blanket statement. Things are very different for lots of different people. You can't take, the idea of applying this to this person is very different to applying it to this person over here. And actually, putting out a line of credit to this person may just allow them to kind of get through this kind of difficult period as well. So actually, the idea of things like line of credits during lockdown may work a little bit better as long as they're very, small amounts sort of thing. It's not like here's £2,000 worth of beer, just give it to us when you've got it. It's like here's a crate, it's on tick, and you can give it to us kind of when you have made those sales. It does get very dangerous, and as you said again, Stephen, if sort of bottle shops do find themselves in a position where actually they're in lines of credit to lots of different people, that's probably a little bit of shaky ground for that bottle shop rather than it being an issue with the system. But there are, and as you said, there are different ways of being able to kind of do things and being able to question the norms without just brandishing everyone with the same brush.
I want to just add on top of what you said, which is, boy, does it feel like throwing the bottle shops under the bus for the brewery's sake. Everyone's struggling financially, and it seems like it's just not empathetic for how bottle shops have been able to survive. So, if they couldn't mobilize shipping, they've just been living off of credit to landlords and whatnot, whatever their coffers might have been for months. And now you're saying, oh yeah, and if you want my beer, you better give me money you don't have because you haven't sold beer in a month.
Yeah.
Right away. It's like, well, that is either incredibly short-sighted or it's just completely unfeeling. It's like, well, you guys are just the people who pay me. I want money now. Like, that's like the whole economy is kind of in tatters in all the kinds of ways, and to just not see that dynamic as if we're struggling, they're struggling, or just here, these are my business partners. Yeah. What is their situation? It's just, I mean, it just shows. It makes me not want to have a Cloudwater beer. Like, hey, bottle shops, you've definitely been part of the reason why we've had our growth, but maybe now that we don't need you, or now that we're struggling a little, why don't you just die in a fire? Like, it's not cool.
Yeah.
Told you it's get feisty.
Well, I mean, we'll see kind of what comes out of this, I guess, whether there'll be any further clarification or further blog posts or confrontation around this, and just see kind of how they move forward, I guess, in the next couple of months as things start to ease off, whether they go back into lockdown in certain areas and things like that, and how this current time, which is very odd, is sort of shifting and changing. It's going to go on for a little while longer. Who knows?
It's like limbo at the minute, isn't it?
It is very much, yeah. For lots of businesses, it is very much limbo.
And people.
Yeah. We shall just have to drink what we can get our hands on to get through it.
I mean, that's why I ordered turpentine from Amazon.
Just a stockpile.
Yeah, just in case.
Stick it straight in the kitchen cupboard, ready.
Yeah, you can just stretch it out by just like cracking it open, taking a big whiff, and then closing it up again.
And you can
I
water
thought
that
you was going to inject it.
I was going to say you can water that down quite a lot as well. So yeah, it goes a long way. I love a bit of moonshine. Yeah. Let's move on from this topic, but I kind of want to stick with beer and come to you, Stephen, because I know that you've been out and about.
Yes, I have.
You've kind of not partaken in, the thrust to get back to the pub and stay there all day and hang out with 5,000 other people. But you have been out into the real world, in a real world situation to drink beer outside somewhere.
Yeah, it wasn't virtual reality, and like I say, it's not. I'm still very dubious about going into places, be it a shop or particularly a pub or a restaurant or somewhere serving food or something like that. So we went to York over the weekend on Sunday, because we're about half an hour outside of York, and it's one of the places that we like to go quite often. Outside of lockdown, we're probably there at least once a month because we just like going and walking around, having a bite to eat and a couple of drinks whilst we're there, etc. So as soon as the kind of announcement was Saturday just gone as we record on the 4th of July, was that the pubs were starting to reopen, my initial thing was no, I'm still not doing it. Even sort of even if it was a micro pub or a tap room from a brewery or something, with all the best planning, precautions, sanitation stations, everything, it just still seems wrong, or it doesn't seem right at the moment from my opinion. I'm still working from home, so if I can't go back to my day-to-day job of working in an office, then surely it's too soon for me to go back into public spaces.
You'd think,
Yeah. So I was a bit hesitant about going to York full stop anyway, being we went on did we go on Saturday? No, we went on the Saturday, not the Sunday actually. Yeah, so we did go on the Saturday. So we went on the Saturday, and surprisingly it was actually quite calm in the city centre. York on a Saturday in summer is usually quite busy anyway, but considering that the pubs are just reopened, I was expecting it to be like a mass exodus of people just pouring in and floodgates opening, which York has a tendency to be more for stag do's, hen do's, people from Newcastle, Middlesbrough coming down, for the races, that sort of thing, which obviously is not happening at the moment. So I think that kind of benefited it really. And the pubs, for the most part, actually seemed to be behaving, for want of a better phrase. They actually seem to be quite vigilant on numbers. During the day, there's never any bouncers on any doors. They only have to have them at certain hours for obvious reasons. But from opening, there were bouncers on the door, gloves, face masks, limited numbers, counting people that were going in, tables spaced out accordingly and appropriately. So they were taking the necessary precautions, but it's weird walking through a city that's usually as sort of densely populated with shops and people, and a lot of shops still being closed and a lot of pubs being closed. And the frustrating thing for me was that there's not as many places you might expect doing takeout options, which I don't know if that's more because of regulations for drinking on the street, but I know some councils have obviously laxed that restriction, to kind of allow for people to drink in open spaces, as long as they're not being ridiculous with it. But I managed to get from Tremble Madness. They were doing growler fills, and Hopper Clock, the one of the bottle shops in York, they have a growler machine, so they're doing can takeout. So I managed to get a growler of Northern Monk, Faith in the Arts,
Nice.
and then I got a growler of Ridgeside beer from Hopper Clock. So it kind of gave me a bit of confidence in the fact that people will do the right thing, and the fact that I'd seen a lot of polls on Instagram and Twitter that a lot of people aren't going to rush back to the pub, and that kind of rang true on the volumes of people that were in there. There were no queues to get in anywhere again, so people clearly aren't that desperate to get in there. The only thing that I did hear was that, which is no surprise, there was people in drinking in Wetherspoons from 8 o'clock, but that's just Wetherspoons, so that's just business as usual for Wetherspoons. So, it was nice to see, but still, from a point of view of my perception of it, I'm still a good couple of months away before I'll go sit in a pub or I'll go sit in a restaurant and eat. Because Anna was like, oh well, if Wagamama are open, she'll go sit in Wagamama and eat Wagamama. I was like, I don't want to go sit in there, because it's just. Yeah. It's not the same. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's not the same experience. But I not not want to trust other people, but in this sort of current climate, you don't.
You're on edge. Yeah.
You like, are people doing the right thing? Are they limiting the people that they've been with? Are they washing their hands? Are they sanitising? Are they keeping the distance away from other people? It's just you questioning every little thing that you touch or you do. So, but yeah, it's. I will attempt Leeds potentially in the next sort of couple of weeks, I imagine. Again, to go out and eat out or drink out, but not sit in anywhere. But it's certainly not put me off entirely.
Good. I mean, I didn't go out drinking as such, but I did go out on the Saturday and went and picked up the order that I put in at the bottle shop, and chatting to Lewis at Bottles and Books. The first thing he said to me when I walked in, he said, "Are you going to the pub today?" I said, "No." He said, 100% of the people I've asked who have come in are not going back have said that they're not going back to the pub. And I think a lot of that falls in with what sort of Aadil was saying earlier about sort of craft beer enthusiasts. The kind of people that are using bottle shops are maybe not those that are going to rush back to the pub. And kind of looking at at least in Bristol, the range of pubs that are back open and have been able to open are more of those sort of macro or brewery tied sort of places, or Wetherspoons, places that are maybe not brewery tied but are bigger chain kind of places. And it sort of, whilst it kind of conjures up a kind of a visual of the sort of the clientele that would be sort of rushing back maybe to the pubs, I don't think that's a kind of a fair reflection on maybe what has actually kind of been happening. I know we've seen sort of like lots of images, and even in the run up to Saturday, when pubs are able to kind of change their not delivery system, but they can say, yes, we can serve you a beer, but you have to go and drink it outside. It's 1 in, 1 out type of thing. There's been videos and images of people going in, buying a beer, and coming out and standing right next to the door and drinking their beer, and then going straight back in the door, buying another beer, and then coming back out and standing in the exact same position. And there's lots of these sort of individual cases that you can kind of pick up on and say, well, obviously people aren't doing what they're meant to be doing, or look at the really busy places, especially on that Saturday, in places like London and Soho and things, and think, wow, I mean, but that is, I think, maybe the extreme end of things. And hopefully, from your experience, Stephen, that's more of what's kind of been happening around the country. And when I did go out on Saturday, Bristol and Gloucester Road is a sort of a big independent retail street, so it does get busy, but it was busier than I'd kind of seen it for the last couple of months, which kind of makes sense. Places are opening, retail has reopened, lots of places are allowing you now to sort of say we can come in with 2 households, and these sorts of restrictions have kind of eased a little bit, so it is going to be a little bit busier. But it's really good to hear that from your experience that people are being careful, people are being safe, and that these venues are kind of taking the precautions, and that they have paid that little bit extra to have door staff on to help them to deal with those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So go on.
No, it's okay.
My friend Isaac, previous guest, Isaac Keane, he's in Cambridge right now, and he went to the pub on the weekend because a friend of his really wanted to go, and his report was, I'd go again if a friend wanted to, but other than that, no, because it's such an alien experience, because they took it seriously, and so everyone was very far apart, and it wasn't like, you go to the pub to be cozy and to intimate conversations and to interact, and he's like, it's not that. I mean, it's like pub-like, but it's not really the pub. And he's like, I'd rather just as long as it's summer, I'd rather just grab some cans and drink in a park. Yeah. Which is what I've been doing with my friends in here in Bristol. Like, it's just, if you can find a spot, that's just going to be you guys, then it's way better than the not quite pub, but also all the anxiety of random people possibly not doing the right things, let alone not only just the venue people, but the other clientele. I mean,
I don't trust people at
me
all.
Neither.
Whenever I go out, I'm the only one wearing a mask.
Really?
Yeah. I don't see anyone
no one wears a mask. Like I live right off Gloucester Road, that Ben was mentioning.
No one does. I'm just thinking, how hard is it, people? Yeah. And I'm not like when I went to Burning Soul a few weeks ago. I think it was like either the first or second time I'd been there since lockdown. There's a fridge there, and I was like, I'm not going near that fridge. And the person in front of me, he just sneezed on it.
Oh my god! Jesus!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And his mate behind him, he was shaking his head at him. It's like,
that's it.
Just shaking his head. But why don't you tell your friend get a mask?
Yeah. And fucking asks for some wipes.
Did he then just rub the whole thing, like rubbing the frame off?
Hold on, let me just lick the handle for a second.
I mean, I don't even trust it because people get a lot of things in their own cartons, like milk cartons and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, I wonder if they wash those properly. Yeah. I there's not much research done on the virus, so it's like, who knows about it sticking to surfaces and stuff like that? We don't know. I don't trust people to be clean and responsible, or
let alone both.
Yeah. I don't trust people.
Yeah, it's a fair stance to take. Absolutely. And I mean, I don't think that's changed for you during lockdown, has it, Lucy? But it's probably just become more apparent.
I don't trust people. People are dirty. People are nasty. Go get some hand sanitizer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's definitely kind of the thing to take. And hopefully the thing that is as you have experienced, Stephen, that people are at least some people are still being kind of careful and sticking to the rules and aren't all rushing out and just going, well, it's all back to normal now. We just kind of go and do what we want. Okay, this pub says that we've got to do this, so sure, we'll kind of make it seem that we're doing this, but actually, you know, we're not. And it's, you know, I think it's going to be one of those where, you know, if we go out together and we all buy 3 different beers, more often than not, we'll all pass the beers around and kind of share them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's going to be nice when we get back to that situation, but I think that is still a little way away. That, you know,
more than
even when you get back into being able to and are comfortable still being able to go to the pub, it's still a case of kind of keeping everything to yourself, distancing from kind of other people. Have your own beer. Don't share these things around. If you want that beer, everyone's going to have to buy their own version of that beer instead of sharing it. Kind
selfish. This is just an excuse for me to be
just sit down with this luxuriant 8% stout and go, no, it's mine.
Every sip is mine. What are you, mad? I can't share this with you. It's been 5 years since COVID. Yeah, you can never tell. Future Lucy's gonna just milk that. Milk stout that? Nah, that joke doesn't work. Ruined it.
Not quite. Almost. Almost. Before we move on, Stephen, have you got any final thoughts on kind of your experience out and about?
It's just like I think you've pretty much covered everything there. It's just the problem with the whole thing is that you're asking people to rely on using the common sense, and like Lucy says, it's not a case of trusting people to be healthy and do the right thing. It's people just don't have common sense. You know, that's the key summary. It's the
which is even scarier.
Which is which is seems like a very harsh and terrible thing to say, but it's like when people can't even stay a metre away from you in the supermarket and are leaning over you and round you in the supermarket to buy something from the shelf pick some over. It's like, if they can't do that, then it's a big ask for them to do everything else. But you know, I think there's 3 pubs that have shut back down since just this weekend because there's been instances of COVID. You know, it's like
really,
So it's like, you know, if they have not been following the messages or the guidance, or the people in there haven't been, you know, it's the facts are there. Do you know what I mean? It's like Leicester, you know, if you don't follow the rules, the lockdown will go on, or you will just lock you down because you can't follow the rules. You know, it's just one of them things. You know, it's I hope it'll stay in terms of people being sensible, but when you've been trapped in the house for 4 or 5 months, I can understand why people get a bit itchy to get out. But you know, the longer they misbehave, the longer we'll be like this. So
yeah, absolutely.
This is the problem with big diatribe avoidance, but the government messaging really is a huge factor in this, because it just hasn't been made clear to people how bad things were, are, and will be if they don't do these things.
Still are.
Yeah, exactly. Let alone what they're supposed to be doing. Like, not only is everything been downplayed, but also it's just been confusing for people. And so when you hear pubs open, lockdown restrictions, if you haven't been really trying to decipher things because you're worried, because let's just say you don't think of public health in your day-to-day or whatever, you could easily think that the situation is way different, and that's why you're acting like that. I think a large part of this is not just willful ignorance in a small sense, like an indirect sense, but just like it's never been really said, this is so terrible, because it's always been, well, but, you know, we'll be okay, and you just have to do this, versus, like, New Zealand's messaging was, we're locking down right away, this is really terrible, we gotta sort it out. And even if we didn't have to lock down right away, I'm not talking about the actual moves, which is a whole other thing, but, like, the way it's communicated is so important, and it's consistently been failed at, that of course people are just not as aware as they should be, because people were busy being anxious about their jobs, their finances, etc., and being stuck at home. And so lockdown must be properly over. They're opening pubs, right? Like you can see where that like mentality can come from, even if it's misguided. Definitely. And boy, am I pissed. Let's just say that. But also, that's why, like, knowing that, it's like, of course I'm not going to the pub, because I get that some people won't have a clue on what is appropriate, what the risks are, and what the mitigating those risks are in a pub, because the whole reason most of these people are going to the pub is they don't get how risky it is. Because, like, like you said, Stephen, super hesitant should be the default. And if you're not super hesitant, then I think you've misunderstood things.
Yeah.
They're just the first thing to open. Being a pub just tells you everything. Like, a pub's essential.
I mean, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I know they're talking about and have started to make provisions to open like play parks, outdoor play parks currently, but the idea like that if it's okay to open up schools and have this bubble of kids, why isn't it okay? Yeah, why isn't it okay to open up outdoor play parks? Why isn't it okay to open up indoor like play centres and things like that? No, adults. They clearly need. We need to quell the angry populace. Give them booze. Open the pubs and allow them to just forget about all of this, and just get back to their kind of normal kids. They can't vote. Doesn't matter about kids.
We can always make more kids.
I'm pretty certain that in an indoor playhouse is probably where most viruses have come
absolutely.
from, though.
Yes, I mean they absolutely do. Yes, but then so will pubs be. I mean they're probably just as virulent as kids' play spaces with people touching the bar and all the brass work
sneezing
and glasses and everything else. Whoa.
Tell me how you really feel.
Didn't wash their hands at the pub before. Anyway, let's open some more beers up. Stephen, have you got a second beer for the evening?
I have, but I'll have to go retrieve it because I've recorded upstairs again. So we'll have to quickly dive to the fridge to go get it. Because I asked Anna.
We'll take a break whilst Stephen goes and gets his beer.
I will be as quick as I
get
can.
my beer from the sink.
I'm gonna get some food because I'm starving and my stomach rumble is probably gonna pick up on the mic eventually. So let me go get something to snack on.
Yep.
I'll be right back.
We are back, and we're going to come to Stephen first for his second beer.
Yes, so I have retrieved it from the fridge. So this has been sitting in my fridge for a reason to drink it, and I thought, well, given it's a sort of a gaming podcast as well as beer podcast, I thought I'd crack the Dank Knight by S43. So
nice.
I thought that was quite a fitting link between the two. So I hastily tried to see if any of you guys had drunk it before, and I couldn't see that you had. So I thought it was a safe choice. So it's by S43, double IPA, 8.5%, hopped with Columbus, Chinook, Citra, and Amarillo. So yeah, and then it's just for me is just because of the art on the can, the Batman styling. It's just I'm all over that. I'm instantly going to buy that, and hopefully they don't get in hot water for that as they did with the Snickers one. So
they're coming close.
Yeah.
They're definitely coming close on a few of their beers. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully they manage to evade the likes of Warner Brothers or the likes. But yeah, it certainly smells dank, because it's not just a dipper on the can; it's a dank dipper as well, I should say. But it certainly smells
nice. I know, Aadil, you and I had Dank Money, didn't we, from S43? A while ago, a month or two
don't
ago.
ask me what it tasted like. It's been a minute.
It has. Well, I'll open my beer and then I'll come straight to you, Aadil, to see if you have any further thoughts on your beer, whether it opened up or not.
It did. You pour while I'll
open then from Beatnikz Republic, Canadian Riot, in celebration of Aadil and Canada Day. Not even a few days ago, probably last week now. Yeah,
well, just shy. The 1st of July.
1st of July. This is a maple and bourbon stout at 6%. Canadian Riot is a variation of our core stout, Kentucky Riot, but with a distinctly Canadian twist. As well as using bourbon oak, we used a load of maple syrup, which boosted the strength and also the sweetness. We then added pecan to create a full-bodied, sweet, indulgent stout. The ingredients, again, doesn't tell me the hops, but just says water, barley, oats, hops, yeast, maple syrup, and pecans. Did I tell you it was 6%? It's 6%. It's got lots of running horses on the front. Is that a Canadian thing? I don't know. I assume they've just, because they said it was came from the Kentucky Riot, maybe because of the Kentucky Derby. They had horses on it before.
I think they got the country wrong.
I will pour this. Aadil.
Yeah.
How's the Little Earth Project beer?
It's very, very good. One thing I was going to say is, on the aftertaste, there's a dryness that I didn't mention before. That's definitely those tannins they spoke about by putting it in aged barrels. Like, you get that. It's because the finish still has that strong lingering sour. I didn't quite peg it at first, but like, you do have this, like, having a really dry red wine that like that mouth smacking aftertaste. That's just, it's there. Those tannins are like really, really present. It's just, what's even more present is that lingering sour. So I just didn't quite key into it before, but it makes it's what frames that finish to be really tasty, is the fact that you've got more than one thing going on. The fact that it's this slowly dwindling sour taste married with these tannins, and again that sweetness, and a bit of man, it's been a while since I've wine tasted oakiness.
Yeah.
Boy, I don't drink wine at all anymore. Yeah, sorry, I'm just realizing that there's like a bank of tasting notes that are kind of like map well because it has tannins and oakiness that I just aren't in my brain when I taste things anymore, because it's just been so long since I've properly like sat down with wine, versus except for when it's like, oh, we're having wine, would you like a half glass? Yeah, sure, right? But yeah, I think that's what gives it the all around feel. That when I was saying it wasn't one note but very like a good sour, it's this is what bolsters it, is the fact that there are these tannins and the slight oakiness, and yes, indeed, some notion of spice. That's why I really like it. That's why, even though I kept saying it's got this lovely tartness, it's sort of sour forward but not smack you in the face sour, it's because that was just, it's melded so well that it was just very easy to be like, this is just a really good sour taste. But now I've had some time to sort of pick it apart and realize, oh right, this sour taste is like a dry red. It's got that barrel aged stuff is working like clearly key to the beer. It's very tasty. And I think it's just so well rounded by melding these things together. It can be really just easy to say, oh, this is just a really solid sort of sour red. But actually, the reason why it's really solid is all these sort of other tastes that are on the periphery that are just, again, bolstering rather than fighting.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Nice. Good. Stephen, we'll come back to you.
So this, I'm actually really, really enjoying it, and I'm actually having to like be careful with how quick I drink it, because it is 8.5%, and I could quite easily drink it a lot quicker than what I'm going to do. You can see from
that favourite.
Yeah, it's you can see pretty much from the colour that it is dank. You know, you've got that thick, orangey, yellowy haze. Yeah, and it's the first thing that you
mango
notice.
juice almost.
Yeah, and the first thing you notice is like how it fills your mouth and then coats your mouth afterwards as well. You know, it's like even when you've finished and swallowed it, it's still lingering in there. You know, you've still got those flavours coming through. And the first thing that you do get is obviously you get that tropical, mango-y, fruity flavour from the Citra, but then because it's hopped with Columbus, Chinook and Amarillo, you get that bitterness as well. You get you get a bitterness rounding it off. So once that fruity flavour's gone and died down a little bit, you're getting that bitterness at the end, and I'm all for that, because that's part of the reason why I do like the West Coast, is because I do like beers to have a bit of bitterness to them. But if you lined that up against one of Verdant's best beers, you know, you could quite sit that in that lineup and easily mistake it for something of that, you know, easy, that quality or that standard. You know, that they're using the same yeast as Verdant. They use the London Ale 3 yeast, and this is in here as well. So you know, the kind of albeit the water profile that obviously they've got down there in Falmouth compared to up in Durham would be different, but certainly the hops and the flavours, and it's also got oats in there as well, so again it kind of gives it that sort of like creaminess as well, that smoothness as well, so nice. I'm really enjoying that.
Good. Ooh,
it looks like a really good beer.
Yeah,
very pretty in the glass.
Yes,
good.
Very nice.
Nice to get one to see how that does compare to the Dank Money, which they put out a while ago, and see kind of what they've changed up with that sort of recipe. So, the Beatnikz Republic Canadian Riot. It is a maple and bourbon stout, but nose, and you can see it is just a stout.
It's a dangerous
pour
again.
Black. Always a dangerous pour. I like to live on the edge. The nose is the nose is super roasted. Loads of roasted notes from that. Little bit of sweetness. I know it says maple and bourbon. Getting a little bit of sweetness, but not a huge amount on the nose. It is a very lovely nose, though. I love a good roasted nose. And it's got a lovely sort of medium body to it. It's not super thick. It's not super velvety, but it's not too thin either. It's kind of in that very lovely middle ground for a stout, and it is again only 6%, so it sort of sits quite nicely. Flavour wise, it's kind of interesting because you get these initial sort of roasted notes from the nose that comes in sort of straight away on the flavour, and actually the maple, which doesn't give it too much sweetness, just a little hint, kind of matched up with that slightly woody, slightly sweeter bourbon flavour, kind of comes in later. And I have expected those to kind of be the other way around, that it would start off with those sweeter notes and move it into the deeper kind of roasted notes. But actually this beer kind of unfolds as you drink it, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a stout. Oh, there's these other things happening with it. It just flows quite nicely, even though kind of everything sort of presents itself in a very short space of time. It's like bam, bam, bam. It hits through quite quickly with those notes, and it just all works very well together. It's very, very easy. Oh, it's too easy. You're kind of left sort of towards the end with that slight sweetness. With that, and you're definitely getting a little bit of the maple syrup in there. With the bourbon kind of maybe being a kind of a backup flavour to that a little bit, but maybe showing itself and moving that maple into a little bit more of an alcohol sort of sweetness, giving that woody note, which works very well with that sort of roasted note as well. I don't think I'm getting anything like chocolate or anything more in terms of the stout off of this, versus just a lovely sort of coffee roasted element to it. But it's all very, very light. And I think maybe the having just checked and looked at the ingredients again, the pecan, which is very hard to pick out, is maybe just dialing everything back a little bit. And maybe actually that kind of that more woody note I'm getting is maybe
actually nutty.
I'm misconstruing it. It's maybe more of a nutty note. That is now in my brain. That image is now in my head. So it is, of course, a nutty note to this rather than a woody note to the beer. But yes, there is just that extra kind of note, just not letting this be too sweet or too explosive or too big. It is nice and subdued. It's a lovely set of flavours running through, and it's very, very easy to drink. I'm glad it's 6% and not 8 or 9 or 11, because this could very easily be an imperial stout. I could see this hitting up twice the percentage at something like 12%, being an imperial stout, maybe being a little bit thicker, maybe being a little bit sweeter and a bit more alcohol, but this kind of just hits those very, very easy notes. I'm very glad for that at this moment.
Sounds really tasty.
I mean, yeah, it looks like a imperial. It should be.
Well, yes. Every beer should be 12%, but they can't be, can they? So let's drink
12
this
is the
beer.
new
Why
session,
not?
right?
Sorry?
12 is the new session, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Welcome to
in
COVID
lockdown,
madness.
certainly. Yeah.
Let's move on and get back into our topics. Lucy, we'll come to you. What do you want to chat about this week?
Played that. Well, I've played most of that Call of Duty Modern Warfare
Oh, yes.
remake. Is it a remake?
No, it's a new one.
It's just also called Modern Warfare.
Yes.
Taking a page out
because
of...
I was wondering, because I was like, this has nothing to do with Modern Warfare, so I was a bit confused playing it earlier today. I'm probably about... I think I'm on the penultimate mission. It's certainly grown on me since playing through it. Because at the start I was just like, yeah, this is Call of Duty. It hasn't changed in 65 years, so... It's very pretty. The faces look good. I think the best thing about it is like the choreography. Like, it's obviously been motion captured. Just the way how everyone moves in such a, soldier-like fashion. I think that's probably the best thing about the game. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's Call of Duty. I don't know why they make these anymore. I was surprised that not the Call of Duty, but like the campaign, because you can see the production value and how much this would have cost and stuff. But I don't think many people play it. I mean, it's a separate download now, which really annoyed me. I was like, I just want to play this campaign and delete it off my hard drive and never see it again, because I'm sick of like 80 gig updates every week when I don't even play the game.
Yep.
And I just want to give the disc back to my friend and never see it again. But yeah, I don't know why they still make campaigns. Like, they don't need to.
Well,
they'll still sell well.
they didn't.
And they've run out of ideas.
They didn't with the last game, did they? Which was Black Ops 4,
I
think. Yeah. And the one before that, which was the one that I recently played, which was World War 2 or just WW2 maybe, whatever that one was called, had a campaign which was fine, very serviceable, which I enjoyed the gameplay of. But actually, the standout thing was the cinematic element to it, and they'd made it very, very cinematic in terms of it looking like a war film, like really, really capturing that essence that you get from something like Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, that kind of element to it where it's all kind of grit and everywhere, and it's all sort of smoky, and they did really well in terms of like the depth of field and what they were showing and stuff like that. Like really well produced campaign, but again, very forgetful in terms of its story, very kind of by the numbers. Something fine to play, which probably just backed up the multiplayer mode, which kind of seems like they brought out Black Ops 4, where they didn't have a campaign, and that lent into the Battle Royale mode, and people complained, and so they've just gone, well, Modern Warfare, this iteration is just going to have everything in it. So it'd be interesting to see what they do this year. I
don't think you could name it Modern Warfare and not have a campaign, and they could have just changed that by naming it
Post-Modern Warfare?
Present Warfare.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or something to that effect. But
Call of Duty, shooty, shooty, bang, bang 5.
I believe it's jumpy, jumpy, shooty, shooty. Because
boots on the ground.
Yeah, World War II was a non-jumpy, jumpy one, but isn't Modern Warfare back to jumpy, jumpy?
No, this is boots on the ground.
Okay.
It's very immersive, and it's not like filmic in its quality. It's very grounded. It's like, oh, this is what it'd be like to be a soldier now, or something like that. So I think they've done that really well. But as you say, like the story's okay. Like, it's growing on me. And the characters are, they're likable. And I'm not looking for, something equivalent of like a Chaucer novel in Call of Duty, but
fuck, now I am.
It's serviceable, and you just think, at what point is serviceable good enough for Activision, who are all about money, and could just easily just have Warzone 2 be the next game. I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Stephen, have you played any Call of Duty recently? Have you jumped into Warzone or anything like that?
The last Call of Duty that I've played, I think, is what you're saying there, Ben, is the World War II one. I'm very much sort of an older school Call of Duty gamer rather than the new, younger, much faster and more competent Call of Duty player than what I could ever hope to be. I grew up playing Call of Duty 2 with sort of bolt action rifles and things, not jetpacks and lasers and Warzone and things. So I've never been the most of patient Call of Duty players in the world, shall we say. So anytime I used to play online, it was always a rage fest, in terms of if getting killed and spawn killing and camping and things. So I don't think it'd do me any favours now. I'm tempted to jump in every now and again, because I still do have an active Boomerang service to rent games by post. So it is kind of an option that I do tend to think about every now and again. But then I just know that I'll end up probably playing it on my own, because I tend not to play games with people online from just a point of view of not having people around at the same time these days and things. But it's just more from the probably the enjoyment as much as anything. I just want to sit and not shout and scream at the TV for a 14-year-old kid somewhere in the world killing me, and certainly Warzone. If you need like a battle royale mode and you're one of 100, you die at number 98, and you have to sit and watch the rest of the game and not be able to do anything. It's like this was just a waste of my time. It's just. So it's I do play Call of Duty for the campaign. That's the thing though. That's the thing is that I actually do like a good Call of Duty campaign. But like you say, Ben, it's more that because they've got, look at this, we've got a blank check basically to make the game. It's just full of cinematics. It's not a case of, look, we can actually make a genuinely, with the technology that we've got now, and obviously moving into PS5 and Series X. Just think of the sort of the World War II, one, Vietnam, wherever. sort of classic warfare game. How gritty and engaging and sort of educational they could make that game, for sort of a younger audience, but instead they just fill it full of showpieces, and just I think just
and have the same nondescript, here's a country in the Middle East, not specifying which, and here are the Russians. However, it's real world, and here are the Russians. And Russians are bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's always the same.
Yeah, it always boils down to it's them damn Russians at some point in time. So, but it just frustrates me as much as anything. Like I do, because I love like that sort of thing, military history, and that is I really enjoy that. But if they could just make a good, not that the World War II campaign wasn't good, but like you say, not have the set pieces, the show pieces, the cinematics. It looks great, because like you say, it is like an interactive movie or TV series, but make it a bit more gritty, hard hitting, in terms of.
I don't know if they have the capacity to do that, because these games, are games by committee. They're like, okay, let's make this not offensive enough. It's just down the middle. These games are focus tested to hell, and nothing's ever going to be any poignant or, hard hitting as anything. Like anything from a publisher who's like, let's take a risk. Activision are not that.
Exactly.
And they probably never will be, and that's fine. And I've always enjoyed Call of Duty campaigns, but they haven't evolved. They look prettier, and they've probably doubled down on things like realism and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not gonna win an Oscar.
I mean, I think that's exactly it, right? Is that when Call of Duty started a million years ago, right? Like, no games were doing anything more than like a thin sort of generic plot. But gaming has changed a lot. So for a campaign, people expect, shouldn't be surprised at the lack of, or not lack of. God, I can't get my quantifier. Or anyway, they games can be more entertaining, more visceral, even if it's like not a political or socioeconomic statement or anything like that. We still have games which sort of toe the line, but have plots and narratives that are interesting. If you still be like, well, you could have actually taken a risk here. But like, I think the Call of Duty campaigns, although I haven't had one in a while, just haven't really changed their formula. So it's more obvious that they're towing the line, because they're not adding narrative elements that are still not going to rock a boat, because it's the same narrative elements. And like you said, Lucy, like more polish, more set pieces, more graphical bells and whistles, but ultimately the same moves. And now there's many other games that still don't try not to be political or whatever, but have figured out that narrative matters in a way that I don't think this franchise has. Like even Battlefield 1 did an interesting take on narrative, with switching really people around and giving a sense for the front lines in various roles, and it just felt more dynamic. And that was 4 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
2016. Yeah, they've done different things in Call of Duty, and they've made a more daring campaign. Still always boils to war is bad, and the bad guys who you think are bad guys are sometimes good guys, and the good guys are sometimes bad guys, and there's Kevin Spacey. But it still just doesn't, I don't know if it's unfair or if it is completely fair to compare to it to The Last of Us, but throw Last of Us's story out the window, who cares? Just the gameplay and feeling it, I didn't feel tense at any point, whereas Last of Us, it's I felt tense in every combat encounter, whereas in this it's just if I'll just drop these people, if I kill a hostage, I don't care, it's a game, it's just whatever. Maybe you won't get an achievement.
Yeah, I was going to say,
maybe you called it,
some random stat
tried in The
down.
Hague for war crimes, but I don't care. It's I don't know. But played that, probably wrap that up maybe later today or tomorrow morning. Played speaking of Pokemon, your rare candy. I did my probably yearly perusal on the virtual console and ended up buying Pokemon Snap, and it's still fun. It's the first time I've played it. I wanted to know what all the hype was about. It's good.
I seem to remember, I played it years ago. I didn't play it very much. I seem to remember it's on rails, take some photos, and that's about it.
You're on Safari. Stephen, you're nodding your head.
Yeah,
you played it. Is it your favourite game of all time?
No, it was just basically Pokemon Go, but you can never catch the Pokemon. That's basically what it was. That's the N64 equivalent. Do you know what I mean? Here's some shiny Pokemon that you can never ever capture. So I actually really enjoyed it, at the time. So when they said they were remaking it or bringing a new one out, I thought, well, that's great for kids and for an introductory game to Pokemon and to gaming. It's a great kind of harmony between the two. But yeah, Pokemon Snap was great. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it has puzzle elements to it, getting Pokemon in, using items like apples and pestables to make them go into different poses or make them evolve and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is fun. Took me about 4 hours. I enjoyed myself.
It seems very short.
I would say that is not as much time as I would have thought.
Well, it's like 8 like courses, and each one only probably lasts like what 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
then,
yeah, probably.
Yeah, and then you're replaying them as well to get
Chivos.
As you unlock new abilities. I completed my photo decks. I think there was only like 62 Pokemon in it, which is fine. Like the next one, like the one that's coming to Switch, I ain't gonna know any of those Pokemon. So it's like I only know the original. Is it 151 or something like that? So yeah,
I know. I think 4 Pokemon names.
That's more than anybody should, to be honest. But I look forward to seeing what the Switch one is, and I'll check it out. I could learn some new Pokemon.
You've got it in you?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be like, there's Bird 1, and Fish 5,
yeah,
and Sky and Mouse 17.
There's a teapot in the new one,
yeah.
right? A ghost teapot? Really?
Yeah, there's a ghost teapot.
I mean, that's, to be honest, like that almost sold me. More ghost teapots in games.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems like a thing you want to hunt down with a camera, right? Like, that's like a mashup between Ghost Hunters and Pokemon. You're like, I gotta creep into this house so I can spot the ghost teapot.
There's no ghost teapot. Oh god, it's there!
What is this shaky photograph? I swear there's a ghost teapot in the frame, man. You just gotta believe me.
It's really blurry.
Put ghost teapot in Silent Hill, you cowards.
You mean Smash?
No, I mean Silent Hill, because I want to know Silent Hill. I don't give a shit about Smash.
Okay.
Smash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I alluded to it at the end of last podcast, but I finished Timespinner, which is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but shorter.
Yes.
It's Symphony of the Night in everything but name. It's even got, like, the same... It's got the same music in, like, the same areas and the same colour of the map. You got like a back, like slide, like Michael Jackson slide or something like that. And it's good. But it's Symphony of the Night. I don't know where it becomes homage. When it goes from homage to just straight up, we stole this idea. But yeah, it's fun.
Does it do anything new? Is there anything kind of added?
You can stop time, and that just makes it like way easier. Like you can stop time. Enemies become, if you touch enemies, then they don't do any damage to you, and you can stop time, walk behind an enemy, and start.
That seems a little
on freeze time and start hitting the front. Yeah, it's really easy. Like after like the first, because in like Symphony of the Night, it's like every corridor. It's like, oh gosh, I just need to get to this next save point after, killing 6 of these really strong enemies in a row down this corridor. Whereas this, it's just like, I can just run down this corridor, or you're basically OP probably half an hour into that game, and you level up really quickly. It's something that I just like. I want more Symphony of the Night kind of things, since Circle of the Moon isn't out till like the end of this week, and it's just like, here we go.
Yeah. At least they get sales off that anticipation as well. You're like, I need something.
Well, from idiots like me. Yeah. It was on Game Pass, and it was leaving Game Pass. Okay. I was like, perfect. Yeah.
Good old Game Pass.
But I'm probably gonna dip into the Virtual Console more in these coming weeks.
Nice.
So
gives you
Super
a nice
Mario
reprieve from the tenseness of The Last of Us and how fucking absurd
my
that game is.
PlayStation's no longer here.
Oh yes,
I busted out the Wii U, which I've played more than my PlayStation probably.
That's fair.
Since 2013 or whatever.
So we'll check back in with you next week for Wii U Corner.
Yes, the most topical of our segments.
Yeah. Resurrected from 2013 or something like that, when it was actually relevant. I don't think the Wii U was ever
it was
relevant.
never relevant.
Ambitious.
No, never.
Good. That seems like a good place for us to stop this week. Aadil, I know you had something topic. Can it leave over for next week?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I like how you pretend like I have a topic too. That's very kind of you.
You said you had something to talk about. Sorry,
I said I could. I would have something to talk about.
Okay.
You know me. It's mostly off the cuff unless something really weird happened in the world because I've been playing games actually. Anyway, yeah. Next week I'll talk to you about the games I've been playing.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Ooh, good.
Will this last a week though?
Yeah, I'm like a goldfish.
Streak?
I will next week
down.
forget the games I played this week.
Be a whole new
tuned,
set of
also.
games. That's good. Good. Let's talk about the beers that we have drunk. Stephen, I'll come to you first. Do you have a preference this week?
Out of the two, it's the Dank Knight, which seems sort of wholly unfair to the Salt Steel beer, but it's just I mean, Verdant are my number one brewery, and it's very, very difficult for anyone to topple them, and for somebody to make a beer that sits up there and rivals them, then it's got to be a good beer. So yeah, I know as much as I sort of didn't buy like a case of the same beer, I'd quite comfortably buy 10 of those and have them in quite easily.
As we say, we're not really buying from breweries, but I'll just buy this one beer hundreds of times.
So just on
forever.
repeat prescription, basically.
Perfect. I think for me, it's quite easy as well this week. The Beatnikz Republic is a good beer. It's a really good beer. It's a really nice stout. Flows through those flavours really, really well. The Turning Point, the Rare Candy IPA, was nice. It had a lovely bitterness to it. A little bit of melon, I think, from the start. Bitter, kind of all the way through, which was nice, and I enjoyed it. But the Canadian Riot was just doing a little bit more, flowed a little bit better, presented its flavours very well, very nicely, and is a good flavour for a 6% stout as well. It's not just here's a roasted note, here is something else. It does present those very, very well. So I think it is the Beatnikz Republic Canadian Riot for me this week. Aadil, I know you've had one beer.
I liked it.
And it's grown on you as well, sort of as you drank it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more of I grew to appreciate it. I liked it from the get. But yeah, I've already forgotten its name because I left the bottle in the sink because it blew up on me.
Stupid, sexy Suffolk free.
Thank you. Lucy's on top of things. It's really good. If you can track down a bottle, I really recommend it. It's a nice sour red. It's very well rounded in the sense of there's other tastes going on, but like I said, at length, all those things are working towards this one sort of. You could easily just think, "Oh, this is just a really good taste." I usually like a taste curve on a beer, but this just does. All of the things are doing that thing really well, and then as it recedes, you notice what all those things are because they in the finish they sort of fade at different moments. But the best part is that initial taste through sort of 10-15 seconds after the finish of the finish. It's just a really tasty beer, and I think even if it wasn't such a miserable day, it's again not. It's a nice like a good sour red is nice because they're not like in your face too sour, so you can have it on a more sunny day and or a more cold day. I think I would definitely try and grab another bottle if I saw one at a bottle shop, which I would shop at.
Perfect. Lucy, I assume the water was good.
Yeah.
Is it better in a pint glass or is it better in?
In a
yeah,
jug. In a jug every day, all day.
Okay.
Perfect vessel for water.
Good. So we'll round up now for the evening. Stephen, if people would like to get hold of you or follow you over on Instagram, how do they do that?
So my Twitter and Instagram handle, annoyingly, is at @points_of_brew. I have to have the underscores in there because somebody elsewhere is already using that name, but not actually using either account, which is even more annoying than somebody already using it.
Oh yeah.
Perfect. Lucy, how do people talk to you
Juicy
about?
Mine. I cut you off because I know what you're going to say, and it's the same every week, folks. Due to this night. Follow me!
Aadil, I assume you're the same.
Yeah. The Omniarch on all of the things. Twitch, where I am at _Omniarch, because some asshole has the non_ version and never uses it.
There was someone who had Juicy Loose 9, and it was actually me.
It's always the way. I'm at Nova _47 almost everywhere. We are Tanked Up Cast on Instagram, on Twitter. You can go to outoflives.net to look at articles and videos and lots of other people's thoughts on video games, on TV, on movies. You can go to our YouTube page to see our faces. If you're listening to us in audio form, you can see our faces on the YouTube page. You can also see a few videos that are going up every now and again. Adam has got a current series out about a game called Hard Space Shipbreakers, which is very entertaining. Maybe not a game I would play, but it's interesting. It is an entertaining game to watch someone else just fumble about for 15 minutes in. Or you can go to Twitch.
If you want to feel inadequate, just play that game.
Probably, yeah.
I can feel inadequate in many other ways, so I'm good.
You don't need to play it, it's fine. You can also go to Out of Lives Network on Twitch to catch us live every week, normally on a Tuesday at 8 PM, or watch maybe the occasional stream that I do or Aadil does or someone else does that does appear over on our channel as well. I think that's probably all of the things exhausted. There's nothing else to
the Twitch
plug
being
or push or...
twitch.tv/outoflives_network.
Perfect. So for this week, we've been tanked up. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
www.outoflives.net